Hi, welcome to Geek Beat After Hours. For those of you not familiar with the show or haven't seen it yet, we're just a bunch of fans that sit around and talk about Geek Beat Live and what happened on the show that day or today. Yeah, notice we're running a tad bit on the late side. I think I'm probably going to change the starting time to 5 o'clock, which will still put us late because we're waiting for them to finish up the show. I'd like to introduce my panelists for today. Drinking something red is Andrew. We have Yanni. And we have Patrice. And finally, back from his CIA engagement in other lands, Paul Gans.
Yeah, but my video's not coming through, is it?
Nope.
No, it's in and out, but it might sort itself out. It happens.
It happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Rick, I'm not sitting around, I'm standing around. But it's pretty
You're standing? Are you on a standing desk?
I have a standing desk, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. All the rest of us are sitting down because we're all lazy, except for Patrice.
I'm not sitter.
You're standing too? Good gosh, I gotta get a standing desk. Everybody's getting one now. Might help me lose some weight. Okay, let's just get to the show before it gets too late and everybody goes to bed. The first topic that I'd like to talk about is actually the first topic that they had, which was the merger between AT&T and Dish Network. What was the guy's name? I forgot already.
Mike.
Yeah.
Michael somebody. Mike Artis? Was it Artis?
Artis, that's right. He mentioned that several times. I don't know why I didn't remember. I forgot. Anyway, I'm going to say that I am actually opposite Michael's position, which is not normal because he rants about a lot of stuff and it makes a lot of sense. This one I didn't agree with because he wasn't ranting maybe, but I don't think it's a good idea. I think short term you might see prices go down, but long term AT&T will just have their foot in the door for satellite providers, and they'll have even more. They'll consolidate even more power to themselves that they don't need. I mean, AT&T is a large enough company already. I'm really hoping that this doesn't go through. That they see this as not a good idea, and they basically say no, AT&T.
I agree.
My opinion, of course, is my opinion, but let's go to what everybody else thinks about this.
I agree. It's just it make too big and too controlling a company.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to break up some of these ISPs so that there can be some competition to bring down the prices.
Yeah, I mean, they constantly talk about competition and how it decreases prices. Yet I have never seen a price decrease for a standard cable company ever. Anyone that I've ever been, in fact, I think that the prices are probably already overinflated. And this is with the amount of competition they have, and now you have Time Warner and Comcast merging. How do you expect prices to go down when the power is being consolidated?
Yeah, I mean, you would basically just have three companies then: Time Warner, AT&T, and Verizon. Boom. And
the little small companies which don't amount to much of anything.
Well, no, the big three would just crush them all.
Well,
okay.
In this sense, I'd like somebody to come crush my ISP.
Well, yours.
If you're listening, Time Warner or Comcast or not Comcast, Verizon or AT&T, come crush my cable company. I want you to do that. Please come crush my cable, especially my ISP part of things. But that's another story altogether.
I mean, I have Verizon, and I'm extremely happy with them, except for the price that I pay for it all.
Yeah, I mean, when did when did the price of cable become more than actually going out to watch movies for a whole month?
Yeah.
I mean, if you can watch right now, you can go watch 3 or 4 movies, and that's even less expensive. You can go out to a movie once a month, and that's less expensive than you pay for your cable bill. For a lot of people.
I could go out.
Android
I could go out to the movies every night, and it would be less than what I pay Verizon in a month.
Yeah, you can take it a family of 4 and still pay less. How are things?
I have one TV out. I have one TV outdoors that I have hooked up to a Mac Mini, and I'm testing or just seeing on that what it would be like if I cut the cable. You know, not my internet cable, but the TV cable. What would I miss? Yeah,
Well,
I have to pay $8 to Netflix and $8 to Hulu Plus. That's $16 versus the absurd amount I pay now.
You're not gonna. You wouldn't get your local television, but I mean, like news. But I don't watch my local news. Well, there is no local news where I live. So
Who needs them anymore?
Yeah, it's all on the internet. I mean, the local news.
Yep.
Yeah, I can go to my local news station and watch all the clips I'm interested in, and read all the stories I'm interested in, and it makes it easier to ignore the crap you don't like or that you're not interested in.
Andrew, again, if you're saying something, Andrew, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Yeah.
For one. Now, how do the cable companies in Europe? Do you have the same difficulties that we have here in the U.S.?
Kind of the same. Here in Germany, we have a little bit more competition than what I've grabbed from the US so far, but overall, it's kind of the same. The cable companies have pretty much divided up Germany. They have their regions where they're the only option to get. The only thing the only part where there is competition right now is different technologies like cable versus DSL versus fiber. Fiber in very, very small regions so far, big cities and a few test areas. So
Patrice, what kind of fees do they charge there? Let's say for a basic ISP with unlimited bandwidth, naturally.
Buying unlimited.
Well, that depends because it's all bundled up with voice, with phone lines, voice number, voice minutes, and stuff like that, or unlimited voice calls. But I think it's something like, well, depending on the speed, I would say $50-$60 US dollars for a month.
Half the price.
I'm paying right now something like 50. But that's because I don't get the high speeds other people get, so I don't have to pay that much.
So like
basic bundle here, if you get phone, basic cable TV, and basic ISP, are for the three, our basic bundles of $125.
Yeah,
and then if you upgrade from there, it can go wild.
Like I said, you're like half the price for paying.
Yeah. And one of the reasons for that, I guess, is the cable network here was set up as a competition to the classic copper phone lines,
right?
And set up by our governments. So and they're competing in the same market right now. I mean. Cable TV is becoming less and less important in the US and in Europe.
Yeah.
So the providers are more and more competing in the same space, internet access, broadband access, and that's what makes it a little bit better. But I wouldn't say that much. And if they could, if they could charge more, they totally would. And right now, that's what's happening here.
So who's got anything from charging more?
The only hope we have is if the internet service providers are declared public utilities, so the public utility commissions or boards in different areas will have some control over them raising prices. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen, though.
It can happen.
Somebody's going to come to their senses and realize that they need to be classified as common carriers.
Yes, that's what I mean.
It can happen. It can happen. It has happened sort of in Europe.
In the U.S.
It's. I mean, the whole story is completely complicated, both in the U.S. and in Europe. But for example, fiber is not regulated in Germany right now, but cable and ADSL are. So I mean, it doesn't make any sense, but that's how it works right now.
I think probably in your case, it's fiber is such a small segment of the market that they're not going to jump in and regulate it as quick. I mean, until it starts taking more market share than it is.
But the thing is, nobody is investing in fiber because the smaller providers can't invest because I mean. Think about what it takes to install fiber to every home in a city. That's expensive. So the smaller ones can do it, and the bigger ones, I mean, they have all the copper wires. The Deutsche Telekom, the T-Mobile, I mean, the mother group of T-Mobile in the US, Deutsche Telekom. They are owning all the copper wires to the homes here. So, or almost all. And they have owned them for 50, 60 years. They are paid off by now. Why would they invest in new technology if they have an old technology that so far seems to kind of sort of work, makes them buttloads of money? 70% of their income is just for the last mile of internet connection. They get 70% of their whole revenue comes from that last mile to every single customer. Think about that. So they are investing, and so the fact that there is no regulation is I think right now is even hindering expansion of fiber.
Your government needs to sit down and tell them to.
When has the government ever been current with technology? If you look at government documents, they probably don't even know fiber exists.
Paul, did I tell you about that rumor I heard that, and this was like maybe 20 years ago, that the air traffic control for the United States was still running an 8088?
Oh yeah,
That so talk about the government's not catching up with technology.
I could tell you some horror stories.
Like I said, that's just a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, but I read that something.
There was a story recently where I think a U-2 plane messed up the whole traffic control system because of the flight plane. The flight path it entered. No, because of
the flight
documentation. Flight documentation. It submitted. There was a story in the US. I can't remember that. I have to check it. Find the link.
As normal as ever, we got way off track of the stuff we were talking about. But let's go ahead and go to the next topic, which was a little bit more interesting to me, which was voice over LTE. Now, several of you know that I've already been trying to cut the cable, as it were, trying to go to a data-only plan and somehow integrate that into using for making phone calls. So I'm certainly for this to happen. But if what Michael was saying ends up happening, that would be very, very bad for a lot of people.
It goes against your data. Your data's charged.
I think Verizon has stated in the past that it would be separate.
So they would have two separate data streams, not necessarily data streams, but
that they would not charge for that they could differentiate between the two.
Differentiate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
between
That's
the
hard.
two, and
Yeah.
charge you only for your data and not for
Yeah.
VoLTE.
And you're
And
gonna
there's
trust them?
well,
Yeah, I was about to say
there's a
what?
good reason. That's a good reason why that is possible, because even voice over LTE is still a separate data stream, and it gets separated from your data probably at the next cell tower, because it goes into a separate in the phone network basically. It doesn't go over the internet and is then
And
routed to some phone voice over IP port somewhere. It gets separate. I mean, that's what's happening right now.
You're saying voice over LTE. Is that different than voice over IP?
Um,
They're likely similar technologies.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the technology side, but in theory they are pretty much the same. I mean, it's IP. It's just IP over LTE as far as I know.
Right.
But it gets at the cell tower, it gets separated and sent into the phone network.
So if I use a
VoIP is easier to say than loyalty.
If I use a VoIP service, then I will be being charged for my data.
Yep.
As opposed to going through their VoIP.
Right now, yes.
A VoLTE.
VoLTE.
Which would end up screwing me in the end.
Yeah.
If they end up going that direction, but.
No, really?
One thing you shouldn't forget is that voice calls are incredibly low bandwidth. So
yeah, it's
to even get to a point where you notice that on your contract, that it's using up too much bandwidth of your.
Here's a question for you.
You have to do a lot of calls.
Yeah, well, from what I've been reading, depending on what I don't want to use the word codec because it's not codec, but
HD.
Mm-hmm.
What?
The HK some numbers, I forget what they're called. It's their protocol for the VoIP. There's different protocols that use different amounts of bandwidth.
Yeah.
But it can be anywhere from 75 to 50, actually as low as 25, all the way up to 75 megabytes per hour for a phone call. For phone calls over a VoIP service. So it varies range depending on what protocol you're using. And it's really not that much.
You have to remember that a phone call can be placed over ISDN networks or over an ISDN line or over even an analog line, and that should tell you how much bandwidth is even available for a phone call. Mm-hmm. So it's not much.
Yeah, but if you have
say
something
50 to 75 megabytes per hour.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now when you go to something like Skype that does audio and video.
Yep.
Okay, that's
how are they going to separate that out from voice and data?
You can do audio only over Skype. It doesn't happen.
If you were to do video, was it to separate the audio part?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Non-chargeable, but the video part as?
I've done a quick calculation, and as far as I know, most phone calls are 64 kilobits per second. That would amount to around 28 megabytes per hour.
It could even be as low as 22.
Yeah, it could be even lower than that, but 64 is usually ISDN quality.
From my testing, I've had it actually at a range of about 50, even 75 megabytes per hour. So I said it may just be the protocol I'm using. The VoIP service is using an older protocol that's not very good compression.
That's one part of it, and then voice over IP servers can use a different protocol, a higher quality protocol like HD video would be analogy. HD audio, but so the bandwidth might increase, but
even then, HD audio it could be different codec too. So.
Yeah, well,
Technically
there's all
speaking,
different variables. But like I said, I've had it as high as. In fact, one test I did was 1.2. I think 1.2 megabyte for the full minute, and I thought that was a discrepancy. AT&T wasn't charging me or wasn't reading the data properly because sometimes I'm on my AT&T and I'm looking at my data usage, and one day it's like say 30, and the next day it's back down to 25. So I don't know exactly what's going on there, but
technically speaking, what would happen if the ISP said, okay, all of our plans are just unlimited?
Like
that they couldn't handle that kind of bandwidth.
Ooh, they could.
Well,
If they wanted to, they totally could.
would the bandwidth at any moment in time increase?
Everybody getting maybe 50, 60, or 100 gigabytes per month instead of 2?
Per month. Per month, not at one point. I'm not talking about speed. I'm talking about, there's no limit on the bandwidth you can use, and we're just going to price it if you want different speeds.
Well, that's one of the things that's been bounced around is like the cable companies used to. Well, there's still some cable companies that way, where you have 5 megabytes, and then you have 15, and you have 30.
Yeah.
And
right now,
that's one thing that the wireless providers have not. What's the word I'm looking for?
Right now, we are getting charged on both ends. We are getting charged for the speed we get, and we are getting charged for the amount of data we've used.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make any sense.
Oh, well, it makes sense to the company. They're making money.
For them, yes, but
overall, the problem is the tricky transition they have to make. I mean, if they say, let's say that go with my data plan where. Let's say I got the hotspot and that's 5 gigabytes of data. It's costing me $50. Well, if a person's on a phone plan that's paying $120 for that same 5 gigabytes of data, they can't exactly say, okay, we're going to switch you to $50, and they can't exactly tell me we're going to raise yours to $120. So they have to do something. In order to get this transition.
Totally do that.
And everything else there. So
there's a physical limit of the amount of data you can transfer at any given speed, and you totally set that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying. I'm talking about as far as price wise. I mean, they're getting this guy paying $120 for his unlimited talk and text and 5 gigabytes of data, but he's paying $120. Where I'm getting 5 gigabytes of data, but no talk and text, but I can use VoIP to do it, and I'm paying I'm paying $50. They don't want to lose that guy. They're charging $120, and they don't want to run me off either. To a point, maybe.
You could do it for new contracts. I mean, there's totally a way to do it. It's just, why would they?
Yeah, Rick, you have to remember, phones are a whole lot more expensive than a hotspot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're paying for unlimited text data. You're paying for unlimited text and monthly on your phone.
And if you break it down to a gigabyte of data, that doesn't cost the ISPs much. Not on the back end, and not even if you include costs for cell towers and stuff. It's if
they've been overcharging us for data for You see the AT&T commercials. We'll give you each 2 gigabytes of data for 5 people at $175. You think, that's great until you realize how little 2 gigabytes of data is.
Yeah. As a family, we have 12 gigabytes of data between 3 of us, which would be about 4 apiece. I'm paying $50 a month. Like 200 a month, give or take.
Well, but you're home all the time. You're home a lot of the time, so you're not having to use your data. But if somebody's out all the time and using that data,
you got to differentiate between mobile data and home data. You know, like my home data plan has no cap.
Is that I'm only paying
mobile
$50
does
because I don't use as much as say the guy, say my mom's fiance, who works as a train engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Which
He
is
probably
gone like
burns through his
at least
4
12
very
hours at a
quickly
time, if
compared
not
to yours.
24. So he's normally not here for several days in a row.
Yeah.
Which means he's using far more data than me or mom.
Yeah.
Right.
But
He
we're
may be
getting
using most of the 12, and you're using. You said what, 200?
I don't know. I'd have to look again, but yeah, I'm using at most a gig. He's using 8
and
while he's out.
anyway, I think we're getting off topic again.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Want
Yeah,
to come back to voice over LTE? I mean, it's the logical next step. Right now we have two technologies in our phones. One is for voice and one is for data, and those two have to merge eventually because it just doesn't make any sense anymore. The telephone network is IP anyway, is voice over IP anyway. So why do we need a different technology just for one hop?
So the company can make extra money.
I mean, that's what they're gonna do, but
yeah,
technology-wise, it still absolutely makes sense to do.
Chips in your phone have actually already merged.
Yeah, but it's still it still needs different antennas. It's still a different technology.
It's like if you can do, they can already do LTE.
Yeah, of course. The chip is the same, but the chip again still needs to do both, and it probably could do one thing better than doing both things.
You know, if
that's where we are going. I mean,
let's see if we get rid of phone billet, the phone part. It could be more.
Well, that's why
walk on the
this whole thing that Michael was talking about is still really relevant to the topic about, hey, he uses 60 hours a month of talk, and if he doesn't get merged where he's not having to pay for that part, he's going to be playing through the nose for 60 gigabytes of data a month.
Well, if he's talking
60 hours,
then that's
about 5 gigabytes a day.
2 gigabytes.
Yeah,
that's not much for an entire month.
I can say that's not going to be like
60 hours, and I said 75 megabytes.
I calculated with ISDN, as I said, 30 megabytes. That's 1,800 megabytes.
Which is
yeah. So, but I guess it just depends on the plan. I mean, for one, if I really wanted to use my tablet the way I like to use it, I could burn through 60 gigabytes a month, easy.
Yeah. I still
I just can't do that because it's too expensive.
So could I.
I still think that it could be even a good thing for consumers, the whole migration, because the plans get easier. If you just say, hey, you have this amount of gigabytes and you don't have to care about text messages and voice minutes and all that crap. You just say, well...
Texts are usually unlimited anyways.
Yeah, so just drop them and say, hey, that's your data plan.
Yeah, you're going to get so many gigabytes per month and it's going to cost this much. Hopefully that would mean the price would come down, because right now the prices are just...
you wish.
Unlimited text. Most cell plans are unlimited text, and calling is just your data that's limited.
Yeah.
So you don't, as of right now, you don't really have to care about texting or calling.
Well, it depends. If you have a Go phone, you have limited minutes. If you have someone's
it's still a marketing instrument. If you look at the contracts, it says unlimited data, unlimited voice, unlimited text, and I don't see why we need that.
I can say
just drop it, say that's the data you get, and everything goes over data. I think it might even make things easier for us.
3G,
use kind of
3G, 4G, whatnot.
Landline.
What is Johnny showing us here?
Can't really see it.
Huawei device.
Oh,
modem.
Hold on a second.
Modem.
It's a 3G. It's like a 3G USB device for PC.
Or
It's
the
a surf stick, basically.
yeah.
It basically plugs into your PC that allows you to go over cellular networks.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
Okay, what was Jenny showing us?
some laptops and Chromebooks come with that built in.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've beaten that topic to death. So
But
we
yeah,
have.
Okay, so on to the next topic that we were thinking about.
The next rant.
The next rant? No. We're
It
going to
was
go on we're going to go on to a non-rant.
Okay.
At least until Kelly falls on the thing, and then she can rant about it. It's that treadmill. I thought that was a really cool device, but I don't know how they're doing this though. How exactly can they have it moving in two directions? I mean, a treadmill is almost, it's like a belt. How do you get a belt that goes multiple?
Rick, if you didn't notice, there was multiple pieces on top. You know, it wasn't just one long belt. It was different, separate.
It was basically a couple of belts on top of one big belt. At least that's what it looks like. So you have orthogonal belts on top of the normal belt, so we can move in that direction and that direction at the same time.
Yeah, well, Kelly's already fallen one on a normal treadmill.
In fact, she was going backwards in that regard. She was actually walking backwards when she fell.
Well, it seems like it's taking input by what you're doing. In other words, it doesn't just all of a sudden go, okay, we're going this direction, we're going to go this direction. It's like whatever you decide you want to go, it follows your movement.
Actually, Rick, if you watch the video, it was a guy over there controlling which way it went.
That's what I'm saying. In other words, let's say you're watching one monitor over here, so you're walking this way. And then you want to look at a monitor over here, so you start walking that way, and then
Actually, no, Rick. The way it was moved, it was done manually. It wasn't you walk one way and then when you walk the other way, it goes that way. Someone
so you have to have manual
buttons.
Okay.
Someone else hitting buttons manually. To make
but I guess
they can do it automatically.
I guess that would even be possible because.
Sure, you just get an implant in the back of your head.
No. Just with a camera or some laser scanner or something like that, you probably could do it.
Yeah.
I mean, all you have to do is detect movement in a certain direction, or even. I mean, usually if we walk sideways, we move our feet in a certain way. So I'm absolutely sure someone has figured out how to do that automatically.
They just haven't implemented it.
Just
what
right
I'm saying
now.
is it hasn't been implemented. These guys are making it manual where, yes, they're...
It's just done manually
right now, yeah. But I'm absolutely sure without an implant, you can totally do that.
Oh, I know. I was just making it dramatic,
No, you need to set up one of those virtual headsets that controls it. What's that called?
Oculus.
That headset?
Yeah.
The Oculus thing?
The Oculus. Have the Oculus hooked up to it. When you're walking through a park or something, or jogging through a park.
The OmniDeck problem with that is it's not moving, and you have to relearn how to walk on it. With the Omni. Because of the way you're strapped in.
Yeah.
Well, this definitely
it's learn how to rerun and rewalk.
I'm not saying it's possible. That's the technology they need to work towards.
Yeah, it's just, but the treadmill is a whole lot better because you don't have to relearn how to walk or run.
Like I said, if they can implement automated movement changes, this has a big implication for virtual reality.
Looking around. It's not a moving part like the treadmill is.
Yeah, but if you have virtual reality and you can just switch positions whenever you want, you can have an immersive screen 360 degrees around you,
That's
and you could just be walking in your simulation.
That reminds me of the other. There was a video on YouTube about just that, where it was basically a screen 360 with rollers in the middle. There was basically a immersive experience where the gun you had was digital. It was tied to the trigger was tied to shooting, and they were basically allowing someone to move around inside, like on the treadmill, with a 360 screen in front, with a 360 screen around it. And, as you'd move, the video would move with you.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about.
You replace the screen with the Oculus Rift.
Yes, but you would still want the treadmill part of it. You could replace the screen with the Oculus Rift, but you would still want the treadmill part because you need to be able to physically feel you're moving in a direction or at a speed in order for it to become more immersive. I have to say it's immersive because
Connect, Rick. You could use something like the Microsoft Kinect to do that.
you can't make the Microsoft Kinect make you walk in a direction without moving.
No, I'm saying use the treadmill.
Sensors on the treadmill so that when you step on it, it knows that you're going in a certain direction.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. Once the technology gets improved, like I said, this will definitely have implications for virtual reality.
I'm trying to talk here, Rick.
Yes, I know.
Conjunction with with something like the Kinect and the Oculus Rift,
Right, you would need the Kinect, the Oculus Rift, and the treadmill.
And scanning while the treadmill allows you to run in different directions, and then you can see everything with the Oculus Rift or the Sony Morpheus. While you're wearing headphones for the audio experience.
Yeah,
and then
it's getting more immersive. It's not completely immersive yet. Not by a long shot.
Some gloves on your hands for your hand movements and whatnot. If you're not using the Kinect product.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Audio. It's like
Yeah, no, I get your point. Anyway, the technology is starting to move in that direction.
Connect into the treadmill for the sensors, and how you're going to be moving your arms and stuff inside the Oculus Rift without a way of looking at them, which you can do with the Kinect.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's the technology is working towards that direction. Is what we need to make the point of. Speaking of other technology. How about the MIT story about the 3D projector? Now, I don't know how many times someone's going to keep coming up with these projectors that don't seem to deliver on what they say they can do.
I didn't even watch that story. I didn't even watch that story as soon as they announced it.
I didn't care about it.
I zoned out.
Yeah, me too.
I guess we had just gotten all tired of the whole thing about it's going to be 3D and it just.
Like I said, I can get 3D glasses 3D with my 3D glasses.
Well, the way I look at it, not the last movie, but one. I remember seeing a 3D movie in the 80s, which I forget which it was. I hope it wasn't Jaws 3D. I think
that was with the cyan and red colors, color glasses.
We're moving on.
You know what?
What I'm trying to say here is that we did this. I saw this in the 80s, and then I went to go see.
I do think they had in the 50s.
Pandora. Well, they brought it back in the 80s. Within the 50s, they brought it back in the 80s, and then Pandora came along, and I go to watch it, and it goes, and I looked at it, and with all the new technology they have, I really wasn't. I've never been that impressed with it. It just hasn't improved as a technology. I think the last one I saw was.
Yeah. If you've ever been to Disney World or probably Disneyland, and until they get a technology that works at home like that, I can remember sitting there as an adult in about the 10th row back, and there was some cartoon feature with the characters on it and all that. But
something like Soren?
When Goofy jumped out of the screen, I actually ducked because I thought I was going to get hit by this guy.
By Goofy?
Yeah. When the theaters and at home can get that type of technology in there, so that when Godzilla jumps towards you, you feel like he's actually off the screen and you duck.
I guess it's just my perspective is different because, like I said, Pandora when the last 3D movie saw, I can't remember what it was, but I still was impressed.
Was Avatar.
I'm sorry, Pandora. I meant Avatar. Sorry.
I was wondering about
what movie is Pandora. Anyway, I meant Avatar, but it was another more recent movie, like in the last 2 or 3 years, and it's like
Avatar.
It still doesn't impress me. I mean, it seems like parts of the movie look like, yeah, okay, I can see where the 3D effect is, and then you forget it's there, and it doesn't even seem like it's there at all.
With Avatar, it wasn't really that. They didn't really use it that much.
There's another issue with the current 3D technology. It needs incredibly high amounts of contrast, and so darker movies like The Dark Knight, for example, don't work that well in 3D because you can't really yeah, you can't really see it because it's still projecting a 3D movie on a 2D screen, and so you need the contrast to even detect the 3D objects and for our brain to even see them in 3D. And I've seen pretty bad 3D movies, and a few good ones. The Hobbit movies, for example, have really, really good 3D effects, especially in the animated part. And there's a reason why animations and all the animation films like things Pixar has done work really well in 3D. It's because you can do that high contrast thing better when you're doing an animation.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're dealing with less textures and maybe even less colors. Well, actually, less colors.
And brighter colors.
The world is not
brighter colors.
It's more than that.
Yeah, I think you're using brighter colors in the animation than you would in a traditional movie.
For example, in the Hobbit movie, the smoke was really good.
Desolation.
Yeah. No, the actual dragon. The actual dragon, the figure, the animated figure, and trying to remember the orc king or something like that, the fat dude. That one was, that was incredible, and that was incredible in 3D. The rest of the movie, it wasn't. It was okay.
They use the 3D sparingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want an
immersive it's there the whole film. It's just you don't notice it that much.
They need to take all the technical people that are producing 3D effects, shut them down, and put them all on holographic effects. Could you imagine, instead of a movie screen, you had a stage there, and on the stage were all these high-definition holographic figures.
Problem with that is you can't really massive dots.
I'm just kidding.
Like over here, like a mountain off in the distance or something. Or you could do space easily, but I'm thinking.
Andrew,
you could
joking.
No, you totally could. The thing is, the amount of processing power you would need for that right now to do even the simplest scenes is insane. If you know how long it takes to render one frame of a movie of a recent 3D movie or even a 2D movie,
You
then
need a massive
that's insane.
supercomputers to do something like that.
Yeah.
In each freaking studio, in
Yeah.
each
Each theater.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
we're running
we're
close.
gonna,
And no, not just each theater, but each theater room, not
Yeah.
just the whole
Yeah.
theater. Each room would have to have massive supercomputers.
yeah, at least right now.
Yeah.
I mean, 50, 100, 200 years in the future, we'll probably easily do that.
You could probably do it with something the size of your
Yeah.
thumbnail.
Oh, I don't think it's 50 years in the future. I think maybe.
No, 200, Rick.
No, 200 years.
I was just talking
Holographic
about the
technology.
processing power, not about the technology itself, and
I'm just
that's
saying.
the processing power you need for that.
I'm just saying. Yeah, in the future, the processing power could probably be done by something the size of your fingernail in 200
Yeah.
years.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying 10, 15 years in the future we'll probably have the capabilities, just not now. Or it's something the government's hiding from us. Right?
Yeah,
Rick. Yeah, kind of
They already know.
on right now.
Who told you, Rick?
It's like
Paul didn't do it.
quality animation.
I never said it.
It's like photo quality animation. And you see some of the video games now. I believe that the government already has, and this is my conspiracy theory, already has the technology to make it look like we were here, and it's not us. I mean, basically, photo image quality video, it exists already. I'm sure of it, but that's just my.
I mean,
I don't understand what you're saying.
Rick.
In other words, okay, if I'm talking to you, Paul, it's not you. It's a 3D rendering of you.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
of
not
course.
even. It's not even the government. Hollywood is doing that already.
Hollywood.
Um,
It's
I
CGI.
can still tell.
Yeah, so-
I can still tell a 3D rendering from
mm,
even some of the stuff on
Nope.
YouTube that's shown
Mhm.
recently on YouTube. They say this is like as real as we get, and you can still
Yeah.
tell it's not
Um,
exactly real.
Well, it's obvious with you in 16 bits. We don't know whether you're real or not.
Rick, 8 years ago, I had a professor, and he was working for Hollywood, and he was doing 3D generated landscapes that were so real that you couldn't see it. They were so good. We did an exhibition with that, and we asked people, is that real photograph or is it rendered? And people couldn't tell the difference. A few could.
Problem with
And as I said, 7 years ago.
Oh yeah, I mean that
So-
technology has been around for several years, but you have to realize the difference between a landscape and a human face. The intricacy
That is
of
the
trying to do that. is just-
We've seen movies entirely with generated characters.
it's
And
basically
if you look at the last Hobbit, and those were fantasy characters, and they looked really, really, really
Yeah.
lifelike.
And the
So
thing
I am
is,
100% certain you can do it right now, and it's not even the government.
and
Well-
it's not just the recording of it or the creating of it; it's the displaying of it too. Have any of you gone into like a Best Buy or someplace just to check out the 4K TVs? I was in a Best Buy probably about a month ago.
I'm not seeing it.
To look at just to look at, not even considering purchasing it. But I stood about 6 inches away from this thing, and I wanted to reach through the screen and touch it. It was a water scene. There was a young girl there, and then there was like a wheat field or something. It was amazing.
I've not looked at 4K personally. So.
You need to.
I have seen compared to curved OLED screen
The
and
area I
both
live
about
in.
the same.
Well, I'll give you an example of one thing that I was impressed with. Although the movie sucked because the acting was just wooden, and you could tell because the characters just weren't animated enough from a vocal standpoint, was Final Fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
which was done, I think, 2003 or 2004.
No, I
And
think
the
even
thing that the
earlier.
technology's gone
Even earlier than that.
Which Final
Hmm?
Fantasy there were two?
The Spirits Within, the one that
Had
was
children,
that they
Rick.
spent $400 million making and it flopped.
Oh, Spirits Within.
Yeah.
I do believe you're
Now,
talking.
when that came out, I would just tell. I mean, that probably still today. I haven't seen a game or a movie that has had total 3D animation that can equal that yet. Seriously, I mean, you think about The Hobbit, but it's got a mixture between real people and computer animated
Yeah.
things. But totally computer animated. What
Yeah.
It's
still?
because of the rendering process needed for that.
No, yeah, that was
Real
incredible.
time, it's just
And
there.
and the Final Fantasy the movie was in 2001. I checked.
Yeah,
There's
the
another
original
example.
one was great.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy. There were, I mean, only in the battle scenes there were entire crowds of generated characters, and you couldn't tell at least I couldn't tell the difference where where they were generated or real people.
I was
So they were.
that was similar. I would assume.
So you're saying when you see a goblin, you would think that was
Yeah, okay.
You didn't know it
No.
was a real thing that you would believe it was real.
Yeah.
So when Hollywood
It's usually a little bit difficult because I mean we don't have those characters in real life, so we can't say okay it looks lifelike because they don't exist. But
Right.
I've seen. I mean, it's just examples, and
That's
what
why
I'm
it's Final
trying to say.
Fantasy.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I'm 100% sure, or I know for a fact that Hollywood is doing those things today, and there have been completely animated movies. There have been, and most movies nowadays are part animated and part real.
Paul,
Yeah.
you know, done on a
Yeah.
green screen, which is
Yeah.
a rendered scene.
Yeah.
But
If you could give me an example of a movie that was totally 3D that every human character.
If you
It's
want
just
to,
so difficult to replicate in 3D or computer generated a human face. It's still very difficult to do to be believable.
A massive crowd, for instance, you're not going to get that many people.
Yeah, but you're okay. But they're in life. When you have a massive crowd, the detail isn't there. You're seeing them at a far distance. I'm talking about a human face at the distance of we are from each other. In full 1080p, the computer generation is just not up to par to do
I'm
it
trying
yet.
to remember. There was one movie recently where I saw that, and it was incredibly detailed, and the main character was animated, with a girl with long hair and everything. I've seen it. I just can't remember it.
Rapunzel.
No.
it's not that one where it was created and the creator had everybody believing it was a real live person and it never was.
No, Tron Legacy was not. The faces were real. Except, okay, now that's a good example because you could tell the difference between what's Jeff's last name?
Yeah.
Wasn't there one scene in Tron that was they rendered him younger?
Yes, but you could tell it was fake. That's the thing, and that's a recent movie. But Tron, I mean, it was I forget his last name, but it was
I mean, there's
What about that
another
movie that's out
part
now
of
called Her?
and
there's
there's
always
a
a constraint of time and money you can invest. Technology-wise, we can do it, but it takes time and money because the rendering takes a lot of time, and you need still need a lot of people to do the actual rendering or the actual scenes before they get rendered. So most movies tend to focus on the human side more and do the rendering only as good as it needs to be for that scene, and that's why you sometimes can see it. But I know for a fact that there was a movie where the character was so incredibly detailed, and wasn't a simple character. I mean, a lot of animated characters, like in fantasy movies, for like I said, Hobbit and so on, they are rather simple. They don't have much hair, or they are just.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're rather simple. Even in the Hobbit, the two I mentioned, yes, they were really well done, and they had with a lot of detail, but they didn't have long hair that was
Well, they
moving in the wind and so on. So
One-
that's where it gets difficult with
One was
light and wind and so on.
doesn't have
There was
it.
a reason why Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within cost $400 million, and that was back in 2001.
Yep.
I mean, the time they had to take to render that first scene, I imagine, cost a huge amount of that $400 million, and it was incredible. Like I said, I haven't seen a 3D movie.
But then think about what technology, how technology has evolved in the last 13 years.
Yeah.
And you can imagine that it's totally doable and has already been done.
Well, I'm still debating about that because they spent $170 million for Tron Legacy, and it barely made the money that it took in. I mean, that it cost. But if they weren't trying to make Clue look like Jeff Bridges, a younger Jeff Bridges, then I'd agree with you. But I think they were really trying to make him look like Jeff Bridges, a younger version, and it just didn't pull it off. It did look fake. I mean, don't get me wrong. They did a lot of good work. I mean, there was a lot of certain details in the actions of the character that didn't look. It didn't look. What's the word I'm looking for? Fake, not fake.
Not just one scene.
Not human-like. You know how some of the animated characters don't really move in a human manner. He did, but facial features they still couldn't catch that.
I would argue that that non-human likeness of the character was intentionally, because if I remember correctly, I mean he is a program. He's not a human.
He moved like a human being.
Yeah. But
facial
he
features
still was
they
a
didn't
program,
catch.
so he still was inside a computer, and that's maybe even intentional.
Okay, well, like I said, there was an argument that they didn't want to make him look too human as possible, but I think they wanted to. And they just didn't pull it off because this technology just wasn't there.
I still think the technology is there. It's just a question of time and money, and usually, I mean, one or the other or both of them are constrained in any movie.
Where did you steal the koala bear, Paul?
Koala bear.
Yeah, from a distance.
It's a long-haired chihuahua.
Oh, good gosh, I think half the people in my building have chihuahuas.
Oh God!
At any rate, guys, we didn't really get to too many stories because we were putting detail to a lot, but it's time to wrap up the show. We've been here about an hour, so I guess that's about the right time to stop this sucker.
Yeah, I got to get going. Late.
So let me go through and thank my guest hosts or panelists, whatever I try to keep calling them. Andrew, Yanni, I know I'm mispronouncing that, I always do. Patrice, and Paul, formerly of a government agency we won't want to talk about again.
Three-letter agency.
And I'm your host, Rick Garza, and thank you for watching. We will see you, well, I don't know. Are they supposed to have a show next week? Andrew, do you know? Or are they going to be gone the entire week, or most of the week?
Where are they going?
Yeah, I'm like, well,
they've got somewhere to go this week, coming up.
I know they're going during CEA in June, but it's not June yet.
They said they were going to go somewhere this week. this coming week. But at any rate, if they're here, we'll be here. If not, well, we might just have a show anyway and just talk about whatever we want to.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about them going anywhere this week.
At any rate, everybody have a great weekend, and like I said, we'll see you the next time that there's a Geek Beat Live. Good night, and have a good week.